Welcome, this is Jen the Liberty Lion, and we're going to talk about Mr. Davis. You want to hear what this guy had to say back in 1841. He talks about several of the same things I've spoken of in my videos. He talks about power and where it comes from. He talks about emergency powers. He talks about the dependent states. Abstracts in the sense of deleting details and making things vague so that intention is not obvious. The speech is about taxes and where the money for the sale of the public land goes. If you love freedom, sovereignty, independence, and liberty, you'll love this speech by Mr. Davis. So this speech from Mr. Davis comes from 1841. It's hard sometimes to believe that such accurate predictions were made so long ago, and that the information has been available for many years now. Try to get this up here where you can see it, follow along. Mr. Davis is speaking on the issue of passing an act by the federal government for the purposes of selling the public lands and collecting the revenue from the sale of those lands. This speech is about the connection between money and power, the federal government and the states. If you've been following me on my channel and watching my past videos, you're well aware of my opinions on federal versus state power. Since we cannot go back in time, we can simply read this speech and see that Mr. Davis would probably agree with me. Some people enjoy being read to, some do not, but one thing's for certain, people for the most part like short videos that are to the point. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. What I plan on doing here is to break his speech up into sections and post them as a series. The titles will be 1 Davis with a short summary for the title to follow, and then 2 Davis. This way it's easy to identify which comes first and you can watch them in order. So let's get started with the speech from Mr. Davis. This is from the appendix to the Congressional Globe on Public Lands, titled Mr. Davis, July 3rd, 1841. House of Representatives, 27th Congress, first session, page 183. Link will be provided in the description. So Mr. Davis starts out stating that, I'll get up here where you can see. Let's see, he starts out by stating that he did not know what his constituents thought of this bill and was unaware of if his views were being communicated to them. So his speech seems to be the ideas that he would like to convey to his constituents about the bill on the public lands. So he starts, and you can of course read this on your own if you like, I'll provide a link, but he starts by stating, the administration had fostered and extended the banking system in this country. Although they had since denounced it as dangerous and ruinous to the welfare and interest of the people, without stopping to inquire how far either branch of the accusation may be correct, it is enough for us to say that the Democratic Party did aid in multiplying the banks. They did so with the full cooperation of their political components, who were equally, if not more, instrumental to the work. This is basically a non-issue. It's nothing new. Same old, where both parties participate in voting to ruin America through their institution of a national banking system. Later, we see that Mr. Davis admits he's a member of the Democratic Party, but I believe in those days the Democratic Party wasn't as corrupt as it is now. And both parties today are really corrupt. So he continues. And if any change has occurred in the course of the democracy on the subject, it has resulted from the light of experience and the severe lessons taught by events happening around it. It was forcibly said that the Bourbons, after the restoration to power, quote, that they never learned anything and never forgot anything, end quote. And it would seem from present indications, and this is important, that we have a Bourbon party in this country. So I think this is similar to like Ron Paul saying two wings of the same bird, that they're both the same. And he's comparing to both the Democrats and the Republicans as the Bourbons. So he says is marked by strong features of resemblance and affinity to their relatives on the other side of the water. Okay, so later, my note is that later we see that what he means, and he clarifies this a little bit more later, is that the Bourbons on the other side of the water is basically the love of power and control over the masses. That the system of government the founders instituted was a bottom-up system. So the people at large are supposed to rule the government. But over the years, the people in power always tend towards a top-down system of power, or what Davis calls later a thrown-down system of power. He mentions also quite the other side of the water, by which he means the European system of power, where power comes from a small group of people down to a larger group of people, instead of the intended American system where power comes from the bottom or the majority up to the top. The Bourbons, or House of Bourbon, is a European dynasty of French origin, a royal house of France. Bourbon kings ruled France and Navarre in the 16th century. They held thrones in Spain, Naples, Sicily, Parma. Bourbons originated in 1272. You can read more about that on your own. But for the purposes of this video, what we're looking at is the Bourbons were kings and ruled as kings, and that it was a thrown down system based in Europe, and that the politicians of America were, and likely still are, trying to institute and basically have instituted a top-down system of power, which takes power out of the hands of the people at large and places it into the hands of a few. And they've done this basically through the Banking Act, and it started with the sale of the public lands. So Davis continues, it is not so with the Democratic Party, for they are ever ready to learn wisdom from passing events, and should they at any time find themselves in error, they are the first to see it and the first to acknowledge and correct it. Remember, we're in 1841, not today. This appearing as a statement mostly of opinion. It's filled with abstract words. We know that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are basically the same, and I think he's really acknowledging that when he's bringing up the Bourbons. He says there's 2 or 3 objections to the bill, and he's going to talk about those, and I will start on these objections in the video to Davis. So that'll be in the next video. So this is Jen, the Liberty Lion. Today is the 28th of November, 2022. Please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. Share it with your friends, and if you don't want to share the channel with your friends, maybe share some of the ideas that you hear about in my videos with your friends. Consider them, and if you make a comment in the comment section, I do my best to acknowledge and reply to all comments. So with that, I'm going to get started on video 2.